somebody else like Tantawi takes power, and you call that your revolution? Revolution is when you take power, not when Tantawi takes power. But people are obviously, there's a cultural crisis in our times. There's a crisis of political education, and people don't know. They just don't know what they're doing. But now let's just look at the Security Council for a second, right? And what's going on there. As I think I mentioned before, the tragic thing that we had is this Medvedev interlude. Medvedev represents forces in Russia who are in favor of globalization. There's a similar faction in China. They're interested in joining the globalized, speculative, parasitic, financial casino economy of speculation and anything but production, right? Financial services and so forth. So when it's also got to do with Obama. Obama, of course, is a Wall Street puppet. I wrote not one book, but 2 books against Obama during the election campaign, before the main election. I wrote one in the springtime of 2008 called Obama the Postmodern Coup, the Making of a Manchurian Candidate. That was him. And then in August, right before the Democratic Convention, I was ready with a second book called The Unauthorized Biography of Barack H. Obama. And of course the essence here is that Obama operates with deception. And right, Bush was a very brutal, open imperialist. He was a thug. It was clear, no doubt about it. Therefore, he got a lot of opposition to what he did. Obama's method is different. Obama is fooling people, trickery, deception, betraying people, trying to neutralize opposition, because how can you be against this wonderful messianic figure? So that's one of the things that's confused people. And then when Obama came in, he went with this reset. When we had the famous meeting of Mrs. Clinton with Lavrov, and she showed him this little button that was supposedly the reset. Well, a reset means that there's a rational partner for you to deal with. And unfortunately in Washington, there is not one. Yeah. There's nobody in power that's got any rationality. So I think now, I think we have to be very glad, very happy and grateful that Putin seems to be making a comeback. We've had 2 or 3 good things happen in Russia lately, and we really needed this. One is, not only was Medvedev put in a position to get out of the presidency, but there's also this other guy, Kudrin, the finance minister, who is very, very bad news. This is neoliberal Chicago economics, shock therapy, International Monetary Fund, oligarchs, and he wanted to be the prime minister. In other words, Kudrin said, get rid of Medvedev, ease him out, and Kudrin becomes prime minister as Putin gets up there. And somehow he's out. And I have to think that Putin finally understood that Kudrin was really a big liability to him. So now we have at least the perspective that Putin will make a comeback. And then I think we should relate that to the situation here in Syria, right? The Anglo-Americans, the U.S. and the British, we've said it several times now, they are collectively insane. They suffer from a war psychosis, they have arrogance, they have delusions of grandeur, unrealistic thinking and all this. They need to be deterred. They need to be contained. They need to be dissuaded. And you can't do this with arguments. It has to be done with some form of power. Now, with the Russians, just in the past week, I think these are some of the more positive aspects of the situation. We have Patriarch Cyril, or Kirill, of the Russian Orthodox Church coming to Syria, meeting with the Mufti of Damascus. And I want to point out that I think the Mufti of Damascus is one of the greatest religious leaders of our time. I mean, a truly exceptional individual. And I've heard him speak, and he knows more about Christianity than most Christians, and I'm sure he knows more about other religions too. But I think an extremely important person, a big asset for your country. So Cyril comes. what does it mean for the Patriarch of Moscow to come to Syria? It's a gesture of solidarity, friendship, support. That's great. And now we have this Tartus story, right? We have the Russian Mediterranean Squadron. We have the, I guess we can call it an aircraft carrier, through-deck cruiser, Admiral Kuznetsov, significant warship, major surface warship, joined by the guided missile cruiser Moskva, and 4 nuclear submarines, I think an anti-submarine warfare ship, and so forth. And they can now come to Tartus, which I was visiting, very interesting. The port, the facilities have been improved and upgraded so that more can be done. And I would hope that more would be done in the future. So this now complicates the situation of the Anglo-Americans, doesn't it? Because they'd like to begin bombing soon. Let's be clear. They get the Arab League to expel Syria, condemn Syria. Then they take the Arab League verdict to the UN Security Council. In the U.S., Ms. Rice says, aha, you see,
human rights.
The regional organization has condemned Syria, therefore we have to start the bombing. But now you have these Russian ships there. This is exactly what Russia needs to do. I would also look back to 2007. There was a big desire by Bush and Cheney to attack Iran, massively. And at that point, Putin made a visit to Ahmadinejad in Tehran in the spring of 2007. And I would say this is one of the things that avoided war.
Maybe this will happen with the case of Syria.
Yeah, I hope
it's
so.
Similar Iranian
so.
case and Syrian case.
That's, on the other hand,
do you
though,
expect or hope?
No, I want to warn you, don't bet on that, because there's too many things that can go wrong. Because Medvedev is still there, and Medvedev, of course, means this entire faction of oligarchs and other people. So you can't rely on that implicitly, although you want to work we want to work to keep the resolve of the Russians strong, because we need it, right? We need to have some form of at least approximate rough balancing, or at least, if not even that, an element of unpredictability. And I guess this is what Putin brings. The Anglo-Americans are afraid of Putin because they don't know what he might do. And he's ingenious, he's clever, he's resourceful, and
leader.
Yeah, he's a much stronger individual. As a human personality, he's a million times stronger than these people like Sarkozy, Cameron, Obama, Hillary. These are gnomes, right? These are little gnomes. So we have to be thankful for this, right? But we can't expect Russia to save everybody. So it's also time to do other things.
I'll ask about this after the break. I'll ask you, Mr. Webster, also about Syrian protests outside, Turkey, Arab League. What happened in the future of Syria after the break, please?
Okay.
مشاهدينا الكرام، هذا فاصل وأعاود الحوار.
سقط القناع عن القناع، سقط القناع ولا أحد الآن في هذا المدى المفتوح للنسيان والأعداء. فاجعل كل متراس بلد. عرب أطاعوا رومهم، عرب وباعوا روحهم، عرب وضاعوا، سقط القناع.
أهلا بكم مشاهدينا الكرام في هذا الحوار الذي أجريه مع السيد وبيستر تربيلي، وهو رئيس معهد Washington Grove. Mr. Webster, I want now to ask you about the Syrian protests outside. They said we need NATO, and they called Turkey to withdraw or to attack Syria first, and NATO to attack. You said that you don't believe Russia to save everybody, but do you think that this will happen? Do you smell the danger of war?
I think it's important to warn Turkey, right, to try to make them think about what they're doing. We can see in the current phase, right, that the betrayal of Syria by Erdogan shows tremendous vanity, tremendous ambition on the part of Erdogan. He is, I think, heavily involved with the Muslim Brotherhood. And of course, the Muslim Brotherhood is this creation of British intelligence that's been used from time immemorial to try to attack modernizing Arab states. The goal of the Anglo-Americans, of course, in these things is when they have allies, what they like to do is play one ally against the other, or an ally against an enemy, and destroy both. This is the principle. It's called buck passing, and it's developed by Zbigniew Brzezinski. Zbigniew Brzezinski always said, if you had a debate between Zbigniew Brzezinski and a neocon, the neocon would say, bomb any country you don't like. And Brzezinski would say, no, don't do that. It's too expensive. It's too complex. What you want to do is get other countries you play one against the other and destroy them both that way. And I think people in Turkey should realize this is what's being planned for them. They are not going to be the satraps or regents of a new empire in the Middle East under U.S. auspices. They're going to be none of that. They're going to be destroyed between Syria, Iran, and other things if they ever get into a war like this. We have to remember Ataturk, right? Ataturk is on my list of the truly great people of the 20th century. And what does he say? He says that Turkey cannot survive as an empire. The Ottoman Empire was a bad thing. It was already untenable by, the early part, 100 years ago. The Ottoman Empire was already pretty much doomed. So Ataturk's message to the Turks was to say, empire is bad for you. Give it up. Don't think it's a benefit. It's a net loss. Get rid of it, and you can have a powerful modern state. This is, by the way, a very important argument. De Gaulle said the same thing to the French. Get out of Algeria. Stop with this. Empire is bad for you. There were people in Russia, I think Solzhenitsyn and Sakharov, who said pretty much the same thing. The Soviet Empire is bad for the Russian people. I try to say the same thing to the Americans. Say, look, empire is bad for you. It means high unemployment, falling standard of living, reactionary politics, barbarism of culture. What's good about this, right? You don't want any of that. Erdogan believes that he knows better than Ataturk. And I would say no. I say Ataturk dead is more powerful than Erdogan alive. And that the lesson that empire is no good is the right lesson. Now, Erdogan thinks he's gonna restart this.
Yeah, but he has this ambition and
right.
He has this aim in the Islamic world. But I wanted to ask you about the Muslim brothers. Some analysts, political analysts, say that there is a deal between USA or Turkey and Muslim brothers.
Yes, right.
And how you can focus on
this? You can see this in the beginning of the year, in January and February. It was clear that the Muslim Brotherhood was coming out of the woodwork everywhere. Who are they? Well, again, Ikhwan comes from Egypt in the late 1920s. And who created it? British intelligence. It's a British intelligence creation. Why? At that point, there was something called the Waft Party in Egypt. And they were becoming nationalists, right? Their line was, get the British out. Have an independent Egypt, end colonialism and imperialism. So the British response to that was, instead of just having British and Egyptian nationalists, get a third force, right, the obscurantist Muslim Brotherhood, and use that to weaken the nationalists. And that's what they've done. Now, this year, it's clear to me, it was clear to me in January, there's a worldwide